The rain poured relentlessly, drenching the city streets as Dr. Ethan Carter hurried through the dimly lit alleyways. His white coat clung to his body, soaked and heavy, but he barely noticed. His mind was consumed by the emergency call he had received just minutes ago. A young woman, barely in her 20s, had been rushed to St. Mercy Hospital after a horrific car accident. She was bleeding out, and the hospital's blood bank was critically low on her rare blood type, AB negative. Ethan was the only one who could save her. He was AB negative too. As he burst through the hospital doors, the chaos of the emergency room greeted him. Nurses rushed back and forth, their faces etched with urgency. He didn't waste time. "Where is she?" he demanded, his voice cutting through the noise. "Or 3, Dr. Carter," a nurse replied, pointing down the hall. "She's crashing." Ethan sprinted to the operating room, his heart pounding. He scrubbed in quickly, his hands moving on autopilot as he prepared to donate his blood directly to her. The woman lay on the table, pale and lifeless, her chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. Her name, he learned, was Lily Harper. The transfusion began, and Ethan watched as his blood flowed into her veins, a lifeline connecting them in the most intimate way. Minutes felt like hours as the medical team worked tirelessly to stabilize her. Finally, her vitals began to steady, and the tension in the room eased. "She's going to make it," the lead surgeon said, relief evident in his voice. Ethan nodded, his own exhaustion catching up to him. He stepped back, his eyes lingering on Lily's face. She was beautiful, even in her fragile state, with dark hair fanned out around her and a faint scar running along her jawline. He felt an inexplicable connection to her, as though their fates were now intertwined. Weeks passed, and Lily recovered remarkably well. Ethan visited her often, drawn to her in ways he couldn't explain. She was vibrant and full of life, her laughter filling the hospital room. They talked for hours, sharing stories and dreams. Ethan found himself falling for her, his feelings deepening with each passing day. But something was off. It started with small things, moments of déjà vu, fleeting images that felt like memories but weren't his own. He would catch glimpses of places he had never been, faces he didn't recognize. At first, he dismissed it as exhaustion, the toll of his demanding job. But then the dreams began. Vivid, haunting dreams of a life that wasn't his. He saw himself as a child, running through a field of wildflowers, a woman's voice calling his name. He felt the warmth of a sun he had never basked in, the scent of lavender filling his senses. And then there were the nightmares, dark, suffocating visions of pain and loss that left him gasping for air. Ethan tried to ignore it, but the dreams grew more intense, more real. He began to notice changes in himself, his preferences, his habits. He suddenly craved foods he had never liked, found himself humming tunes he had never heard. It was as though another person was living inside him, their presence growing stronger with each passing day. One night, he woke in a cold sweat, his heart racing. He stumbled to the bathroom, splashing water on his face. When he looked in the mirror, he froze. For a moment, just a moment, he didn't recognize the man staring back at him. The eyes were his, but the expression was someone else's. Lily noticed the changes too. "You've been distant," she said one evening, her voice tinged with concern. They were sitting on her apartment balcony, the city lights twinkling below. "Is something wrong?" Ethan hesitated, unsure of how to explain what he was feeling. "I've been having these dreams," he said finally. "And they feel so real, like they're not mine." Lily's eyes widened and she looked away, her fingers nervously twisting the hem of her sweater. "I've been having them too," she admitted softly. Ethan's breath caught. "What do you mean?" She took a deep breath, her gaze meeting his. "I've been seeing things, memories, I think. But they're not mine. I see a little boy running through a field. I hear a woman's voice, calling his name. And there's this pain, like I've lost something precious." Ethan's heart raced. "That's exactly what I've been seeing." They sat in silence, the weight of their shared revelation hanging heavy in the air. It was impossible, and yet it was happening. The transfusion had done more than save Lily's life. It had connected them in ways they couldn't comprehend. As the days turned into weeks, the connection between them grew stronger. They began to experience each other's emotions, their thoughts intertwining in a way that was both beautiful and terrifying. Ethan could feel Lily's joy, her sorrow, her fears. And she could feel his. But with the connection came a darker side. Ethan began to lose himself, his identity slipping away as Lily's memories and emotions took hold. He would wake up in the middle of the night, unsure of who he was, his mind a jumble of conflicting thoughts and feelings. He was Ethan, but he was also Lily. And she was him. Lily struggled too. She felt Ethan's presence in her mind, his thoughts bleeding into hers. She would find herself doing things she had never done before, saying things she would never say. It was as though they were becoming one person, their individual selves fading away. One night, Ethan couldn't take it anymore. He stood in front of the mirror, staring at his reflection. The man looking back at him was a stranger, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. He knew what he had to do. He went to Lily's apartment, his heart heavy with the weight of his decision. She opened the door, her eyes filled with tears. She knew why he was there. "We can't keep living like this," Ethan said, his voice breaking. "We're losing ourselves." Lily nodded, her tears spilling over. "I know." They held each other tightly, their connection stronger than ever. But they both knew it was time to let go. They couldn't continue to exist as two people in one body, their identities merging into something unrecognizable. The next morning, Ethan went to the hospital and requested a full blood workup. He needed to understand what had happened, to find a way to reverse the effects of the transfusion. But the results were inconclusive. The doctors couldn't explain the connection between him and Lily, the way their minds and emotions had become intertwined. In the end, Ethan made the hardest decision of his life. He left the city, leaving behind everything he had ever known. He couldn't risk losing himself completely, couldn't risk hurting Lily any more than he already had. Lily stayed behind, her heart broken but her spirit unbroken. She knew Ethan had done what he thought was best, but it didn't make the pain any easier to bear. She would always carry a piece of him with her, just as he would carry a piece of her. Years passed and life went on. Ethan moved to a small town, far away from the city and the memories that haunted him. He tried to rebuild his life, to find a sense of normalcy. But he could never escape the connection he shared with Lily. She was a part of him just as he was a part of her. And Lily, she found solace in her art, pouring her emotions onto the canvas. Her paintings were filled with vibrant colors and haunting imagery, a reflection of the love and loss she had experienced. She never forgot Ethan, never stopped wondering what might have been.